Hey guys, Dark Humility here. You can always catch me at twitch.tv/Dark Humility, or 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 action, D2R, PD2. We do it all manners of builds, all manners of challenges, all manners of awesome guides. Of course, you can always catch all of my awesome guides on my YouTube and at d2.maxroll.gg, like this one, which will be featured on a written guide as well on the site today. And of course, we will be going hard on Ladder 2, Terror Zones, get hyped, let's get it. Today we have a very interesting guide, I could say, for you guys. Very interesting one. We've got the Blaze Sorceress. Yes, you heard that right. The Blaze Sorceress. The queen of the F tier. Not very versatile, but there's definitely a couple of fun scenarios where you can really make her pop. And she's got a very interesting and unique playstyle. So I thought I'd highlight how this build could be used today. A lot of people might not even think this skill has any use whatsoever, but you would be wrong. And so that is what we're doing. Of course, we'll be featuring this once again on Maxroll. We're going to be doing this guide on single player using items I had found on my LOD Grail a while back. And so I put on a bunch of realistic items that were found by myself and loaded them up onto the D2R single player. And here we are. So let's go over exactly what we'll be doing here in a moment. Alright, so what we got here is a level 96 Sorceress. Here we go. We got 15,000 blaze damage. She's a lot of fun. Of course, we'll go over the stats, skills, the Mercenary, or lack thereof in this case, and of course the gear, and we'll do a couple of pretty sick demos so you guys can see what's going on. I plan to make this a bit of a shorter guide than most of my build guides because not really as much to say. I hope this build guide is interesting enough for you to maybe think about trying it, but it's actually a very fun way to farm things or just play in the end game in general. Let's get started. So we have Miss Hot Tub here, level 96 Sorc. In general, you just want enough strength to be able to wear all of your gear. Honestly, probably went a little bit too ham on the strength in this build. You don't need that much strength necessarily. And then you want enough dex to be able to wear all of the items on your build as well. In some cases on this build, you might not even need to put any points into strength or dex at all because it will be provided by your gear. We then put about an equal number of points in a vitality and energy shield, or an energy, sorry, not energy shield, because we're going to want to make use of energy shield. However, our energy shield's not going to be quite as ridiculously strong as it could be on a lightning sorcerer's build. So kind of balance it out. Definitely put a decent number of points in the vitality and energy. You could go even more ham on the energy if you want. Definitely possible here. However, you don't need to. I would recommend making sure you have a decent amount of life just in case you're dealing with, in case you want to use her in zones where there's mana drain monsters, you get mana burn just in general, so you don't just instantly die once you start losing mana too quickly. So I do like the balance, and she's extremely tanky with this balance, so I think that's kind of nice. One thing to note about this build is because you are relying pretty heavily on energy shield, you won't really need crazy resistances necessarily. Your biggest issue is maybe poison resistance, but in general, her resistances don't even really need to be maxed, even in the end game. She'll be perfectly fine. You can go for higher resistances if you want, but that is totally up to you. And that's pretty much it for the basic statistics here. There's definitely some other things we're going to want to talk about stat-wise You're going to want as much damage as possible, as much negative enemy fire resistance. Having decent magic find is good. You know, having some other decent stats as well, like life per kill. Damage reduction, not super important. And faster cast rate can help get you around quite a bit just in general. However, one thing to note is that there's one stat here that's actually very, very important, which is not important on almost any other build, which is faster run walk. You want to run really fast if possible. Running fast allows this build to get more DPS in, especially in cases of high player count and things of that nature. So it's really important. Of course, we'll be testing this build on both low and high player counts, so you get to see that. One thing you'll note though is we don't have like a lot of damage reduction. We don't even have a shield, and we run past monsters. I don't recommend playing this build on hardcore. It's going to be really tough, really challenging to pilot. Even if you do play with the shield, you're going to have the block penalty because you're running on this build most of the time, and so your block rate won't be very good. You can get pretty tanky, as I'll show you guys here. However, playing her on hardcore is definitely going to be quite challenging, so I don't really necessarily recommend it. The playstyle itself is it's pretty dodgy for hardcore. So here we go. You can definitely always play anything in hardcore if you really want to, but I gotta say this would be a real challenge. All right, let's go over the skills real quick. So in general, those are probably the main facets to her stats. You want a lot of negative enemy fires. You want a lot of plus skills. You want a lot of faster run walk. Faster cast rate can help you get around, and a couple of other stats and defensive stats in general are going to be at least somewhat decent or interesting. Another stat we didn't really mention is cannot be frozen. We have half freeze duration on Flickering Flame, which isn't bad. However, without like maximum cold res, we're still going to get frozen for a pretty decent amount of time. You don't need cannot be frozen on this build because the idea is to not get hit constantly, especially when you're playing her in her best farming zone, the secret cow level. But cannot be frozen can be a stat that you put on her, so it is definitely something that is a bit optional, and that's definitely something that could be good. Alright, let's go into the skills. So the skills, max blaze, you max the synergy warmth, and you max fire mastery. Pretty basic there. And then of course you can use Fire Wall or Inferno for killing single targets. Without maxed Inferno though, Fire Wall is in general going to be a lot more effective against most single targets. You're going to be using Blaze for killing any kind of density. And then of course you got Static Field that you can use as well for density, especially in higher player count. And the rest of the points pretty much go into, you put 1 point to teleport by default, or if you have Enigma, you already have it. You basically put the rest of the points into telekinesis to beef up energy shield and make it more effective at reducing the damage you take to your mana. And you beef up energy shield itself so that most of the damage you're taking goes to your mana, which will really utilize all these points you put into energy and some of these items that give increased maximum mana and whatnot. And in general, it's going to be a really good idea. So we're going to make this build beefy. Going to make her capable of taking down monsters' health a notch, especially dense monsters or bosses. And we're going to make her blaze max power. In general, that is the standard build. That's all we'll be going over here today. You could make a starter version of this build work in Players 1 cows, for instance. And you can also make a build that can also do a lot more damage with Inferno, so you can also have some other ways of attacking. Such as in areas where the monsters don't always follow you, like ranged monsters, like in the Stony Tomb, but we won't be focusing on that in the video. That will be all on the written guide where this video guide will be embedded, so do keep that in mind. Alright, so now let's go over the Mercenary. Oh wait. Where's the Mercenary? Did I forget to buy him? No. So, yeah, there is a Mercenary, but he has no gear. And the reason being is that we don't want Mercenary. A Mercenary is actually detrimental to this build. Now, that might sound crazy, because in almost every build in Diablo 2, you want a Mercenary. Mercenary can give you an extra aura, Mercenary can give you extra damage, Mercenary can protect you, Mercenary can give you multiple extra auras in some cases. Why? And can at least give you like more damage, maybe some kind of helping skill like Battle Cry. So why in the world does a Blaze Sorceress not have a Mercenary? Well, it's because of how Blaze works. You want the monsters to run into Blaze, to path into it. Doesn't really happen all that well with a Mercenary. Even if you use like an Act 3 Mercenary, you run around with Blaze, the Mercenary will fall behind, he'll get in the way, the monsters will attack the Mercenary instead of running into your Blaze. It's that simple. You can try it with any Mercenary you want, and it's not going to be very effective. If you are relying more on Inferno, you definitely can use a Mercenary and just have Blaze not be as effective in some situations, but will still be effective, and then you can also rely on Inferno. However, and then you can use like, you know, Phoenix and Ashudas as your main weapons, or maybe something that has even more plus skills to Blaze and whatnot. However, in this case, as you'll see here, we don't have any of that. We're actually going to be wearing the Infinity to get the negative 85% enemy fire resistance. We are wearing it on ourselves. Of course, that comes from the level 12 Conviction Aura. We're also getting faster run walk from it, though. And we're also getting MF. And even Cyclone Armor and Vitality. So there's actually a lot of pretty solid stats on this. The faster run walk is going to make us path faster with Blaze. It's going to be very good. It's going to give us Magic Find. And it's going to give us Conviction. One thing to note, though, is that you actually would prefer a non-F1, especially if you want to use Cyclone Armor. I am using the charges on an F1 just for swag, but honestly, if you do this for real, make your Infinity in a low requirement base so that you don't need to put any points into Strength and Dexterity. It's not going to help your damage in any way. The base damage doesn't matter. It's just helping your fire damage. So you just want the Conviction Aura and the negative res, fire res from the Conviction Aura. And of course the faster run walk and whatnot. So we don't need the Mercenary. We're going to just use the Infinity yourself. Mercenary is going to get in the way. Of course, Enigma, also faster run walk, plus skills, strength, DR, life after each kill, magic find. It just has so many good stats. Even damage taken goes to mana. Really, really good stats just in general. There's definitely other things we can use, like a Blaze Ormus. You know, you can use an Inferno Ormus if you're going the other approach. Yeah, so there are a few other options. You can also use like Tal's Armor if you decide to go full Tal's. Just keep in mind though, if you go like full Tal's or something, that you won't be able to wear Infinity, and so you'll have less negative enemy fire res because you might have to use like Phoenix or something instead. Those are all possible options. And of course they can increase your MF and res in a lot of cases as well, and mana and all the other fun stuff, but Enigma is really solid. It gives us a lot of solid stats, and the faster run walk is really the target here. You could go Chains of Honor, which will boost your res a lot. You'll see we don't have a lot of res. However, I don't really recommend that because it's all about that movement speed. So I would just go, honestly, Enigma as well. I mean, you can also do some other really crazy things, like just put facets in an armor if you want, but you're going to be missing out on all of these other extremely good stats if you do that, so don't really recommend that. Blaze Ormus, I would say, is definitely like the other thing that can definitely be like really solid here. Flickering Flame. So I don't really see anything beating Flickering Flame. I mean, there's other things you can do, of course. You can use Crown of Ages if you want to be tankier. You can use a Shaco if you want more MF and more life and mana. But the negative enemy fire is provided by Flickering Flame in addition to 3 skills and a pretty healthy amount of mana just by itself. And even the half restoration and everything else and the huge amount of fire is just really good. It's pretty much unbeatable on this build. It can get up to negative 15 enemy fire res. This one's just kind of decent. But in general, you really want all that negative enemy res if possible. So I think Flickering Flame is definitely the way to go on this. You can also go like 3 fire skill, 30 faster run walk circlet as well. Like faster run walk, remember. Really good. And then that could have like 2 fire facets in it. So there definitely are some other options, but Flickering Flame is pretty solid. 3 fire skill Ami or a Mars or something similar is pretty much what you're going to want. You're going to want res. You can also get like a blood crafted amulet with like faster run walk and skills on it as well. There's definitely a lot of really solid approaches you can use on the amulet. 3 fire skills. You could just go pure damage though and just go through fire skills and magic find or something as well. Collar arms and spirit, just standard stuff on the weapon swap here. And then I recommend having one of the 40 faster run walk boots because once again faster run walk is such a big deal, but you can also go war travs if you want more MF. You can go 30 faster run walk with res and MF boots as well. But this is just to show though that like 40, faster run walk is just a really key stat on this build in general. Mage Fist is the only way you get a fire skill and a pair of gloves, and it gives us some FCR to reach that 37% faster cast rate breakpoint. Just so that we can have some teleport mobility. You definitely go for some more teleport mobility if you want though. And then we get a lot of mana for energy shield and plus skills is Stone of Jordan, the only way to get damage off of rings. And the only way to get damage off of the belt, which is a skill here as well. Maximum mana, which is even better, and faster cast rate for that 37 breakpoint once again. And in charms, you could actually just go all faster run walk ones like this one. I don't have this many of those, but if you did, you could run even faster. Faster run walk is incredible in this build, so. But you can just, boost up your life, whatever you want. In general, you can use plain fire skillers. Doesn't matter too much. 40 MF Geed's Fortune as well. And then faster run walk res is really good, but you don't have to do this. You could also use like MF res as well, or just MF in general, magic find. However, like I said, I like faster run walk. The fact that we don't even have more 7 faster run walk GCs makes us a little bit slower anyway, but we're still pretty darn fast. And then we have, the Torch and the Annie, as good as you can possibly get them, if possible. This is the endgame Blaze Sorceress. This is what she is. And even as a build that might have limited application in a lot of ways, we're going to show you guys what she's capable of. First, we'll do players 1. So the difficulty should be set to players 1 here. And you'll see just how ridiculously strong Blaze is and how much damage it really is capable of doing. So let's go demo her out. Let's go show her off. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to gather as many cows as possible, if possible. This is her best farming area, period. The monsters path directly into you, they follow you at a good pace. You get a lot of density out of it as well. And no, she's not the fastest cow farmer in the universe, despite this being her best area. However, she's pretty darn strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather the cows, and right in front of them, I'm going to start casting Blaze and start zigzagging at about the width of the pack. And it's going to drop them. Look at that. Look at all that damage. Well, we didn't cast Energy Shield. Sure to cast Energy Shield. If you want Cyclone Armor on your Infinity, you can cast that as well. Something else you can do. You can actually cast Static Field once. Or a few times as well if you want. Just run back and forth right in front of them, kind of using a zigzag technique. That's what I like to call it. Okay. Notice that even if you teleport, the blaze will follow you, which is nice. So you can just teleport to the next pack. Looks like it ran out. Recast it if it expires. Notice that we take a lot of damage too. You'll see that kind of like a hybrid energy shield build slash, it's pretty good. There's a reason why we have some health, as you can see, but if we totally run out of mana, our energy shield will get knocked off, and then we're going to take a lot of damage. When the cows move very fast, it can actually be kind of nasty in general. You can just see how much damage we do, especially in P1. You can just see how ridiculously strong she can be. Players, if you're a much weaker version of this build, you're definitely going to have to maybe always use static field, just so that you can kill them fast enough. The more you zigzag, the more damage you can do to them. So the more we run back and forth, you know, can really make that damage lethal, which is why you need faster rune lock.
Impossible.
Impossible. Pretty much make them die the second they run into the fire. So notice how we're slowly moving away from them as we cast the fire, so that when they run into it, they basically instantly die. Of course, against single targets. If you have any isolated targets or anything, you can always use Fire Wall, which is always not a bad idea. And balam, bazam, bazam. Look how strong that is, right? It's pretty darn strong. Yeah, we can just put a massive amount of fire damage by kind of moving back and forth, slowly moving away from the monsters. If you have ranged enemies, you can kind of go in between them as well, and then kind of just like move away from them directly in a straight line. Blaze, as you might notice, also increases our run walk speed on top of our run walk, which is really good. You'll notice though, if we put away the Enigma, definitely slow down a little bit. So yeah, all that fast run walk on your gear is very nice.
No.
That is a monster that's fire immune, so I'm not going to mess with him at all. You know, don't mess with the fire immunes, you don't need to. Unless you have a Mercenary with the Inferno kind of version of the build.
Not in town.
That's pretty much all you gotta do. Oh, we actually don't have the telekinesis button down currently. Nice. Let's see, did I already gather this one? No. Yeah, I think we did. Okay. So let's actually reload the game here, and let's see here what's going on. Okay. Just a second here. Alright. And now, let's do even higher player count. You might wonder, well, sure, she can do players 1 with a full build, but is she actually capable of, like, clearing cows in a full game and getting that maximum benefit in terms of the number of, the probability for any individual cow or monster to drop an item, and thus making it to where tons of items drop and increasing my chance of getting high runes? Can we do any, like, serious farming with this? Really serious farming? Of course, the answer has to be yes. We'll demo her in Players 7 so you can see the maximum player count for item drops. Players 8 only helps with experience, so I'll show her in there as well. Of course, we'll do cows again, but we're also going to show off Stony Tomb as well so you can see that she's not just a one-trick pony, but the same time, she's also not insanely useful in a lot of areas. It can be very difficult depending on monster pathing and things of that nature. So you guys might not know, but in patch 2.4, they essentially made this build viable with Flickering Flame, on top of just improving the skill in general. And so in patch 2.4, it's actually possible to mess around with the Blaze Sorceress if you want to. You can see how fast we are, though. Like, look at this. And the movement speed actually from Blaze persists even in town, which is kind of neat. Let's see here. Alright, let's go. Alright, let's do player 7 cows. Alright. So player 7, you might be thinking, okay, we're about to get rolled. Not so fast. Oops. Well, we might get rolled if I do that. Alright, so, same thing. Except, definitely cast some static field. Run back and forth about the length of the cows. Run a bit in front of them. It's okay if you get hit a few times. And you notice that there's still a couple of stragglers still alive. What we can do is we can make sure we have Fire Wall. He's pretty magic resistant, so he's pretty hard to kill. In some cases, if the monster is really resistant, you don't have to kill it necessarily. Notice though, with Infinity and all the negative enemy light res we have, static field is actually really effective. Just because we're wearing Infinity. You don't actually get that negative enemy light res benefit unless you're actually using it instead of your Mercenary, which is kind of nice. So using static field against high player count cows is very effective. And you can see the cows are dropping a lot of items now. We're in player 7. They're getting destroyed! We can gather as many as you possibly can here. There we go. Just gonna run in front of them, kind of move away from them slowly. Notice how fast they die if you keep doubling back on the fire over and over. The fire starts to do crazy amounts of damage when they run into it. And so yes, high player count cows, very doable. Remember to recast Blaze if you need to. The reason why you have energy shield is so that you can tank them as they approach you. So you don't necessarily have to move away from them super fast or anything. And that is how you kill cows with Blaze, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Notice that I'm running at about the width of the cow pack so that the Blaze fire catches the entire pack as it runs into me. It's very key for playing this build well. Look how much fun this is though. Of course, you can always repair the Cyclone Armor charges if you have a non-Eth Infinity. You're basically just luring them to their doom. Notice that there, my bow ran out. If it wasn't for the fact that I had like some life, I would have died there. That's why I like to kind of have a bit of a even approach, but there's definitely some other stat approaches like I mentioned before. You can definitely go harder on the energy shield if you want. There's a pretty high level energy shield you can use at the standard build. Ow, ow, ow. And notice if you teleport, the blaze is still active. Don't bother trying to kill a cow that's immune to fire and physical. Even if you had your mercenary, that's a no-go. There you go, the zigzag technique is OP. Oh, there's more cows up here. I didn't see that. No. Of course, we're not picking up the items, but as you can see, though, it's actually pretty solid at clearing high player count cows. Yeah, it's not like the fastest build in the universe at doing it. However, it's pretty darn solid. A lot of people might expect that, you know, this build maybe at best can do players 1, and then it's just not possible to do it past that, but no, it's actually decently effective. That's pretty much the only reason I'm making this build guide at all, is because it's actually possible to use this build. Now let's go into the Stony Tomb. Now the Stony Tomb, you know, we're not really going to show Inferno too much, because this isn't the max Inferno approach, but Inferno would be really good, especially against ranged monsters. You know, if you go like a Mercenary approach as well and use Phoenix, you can definitely get even more negative res, and Inferno does pretty well against packed ranged monsters and packed monsters running into you. So you could use like a combination of Blaze and Inferno with that approach. However, what we're going to show here is player 7 Stony Tomb, which is Blaze. Now, remember we talked about ranged monsters not pathing into you quite as effectively, but you can still get them to path into you if you kind of like move straight away from them, so you can kind of like move inside of them and then just move away from them and then they'll follow you. See, we're frozen, so this is actually one reason you might actually want not frozen, so you can run faster when you're frozen. In general though, we're still fully capable though, running in between the monsters and whatnot. Oh shoot, wrong button. There we go. Notice that you can still use the zigzag technique against other monsters. Melee monsters will usually path into you. Notice that the ranged monsters do not, so in order to kill them, you kind of have to like put fire in between them and then just kind of like run away from them and have them follow you. And then they'll die. Ow. Yeah, my poison res is terrible, so... It is definitely a weakness of this. If you want to farm more Stony Tomb, you should probably get more poison res. You'll notice, though, that if you kind of like weave the fire in between the ranged monsters, you can still kill them. Which is nice. Yeah, I'll notice they'll follow you into the fire if you kind of just like run away from them, basically. Melee monsters is so much easier. The zigzag technique is really good. Kind of zigzag away from them, like inching away from them as they approach you. It's always going to work against the cows and everything else. Alright, so start moving away from the ranged monsters. Path away from them if you can. Now, sometimes a troublesome ranged elite or something will be pretty hard to kill. That's when you can use Fire Wall. Let's see if we actually see anything we can kill Fire Wall with here. Notice how the fire is still there. See, Fire Wall does a lot of damage. Definitely does. Yeah, all this poison... No poison res is pretty nasty. What's interesting, though, is that you can even use this build to kill some other very cool things, too. You can even use like a lower res one on the swap if you want to double up on the negative enemy res. That's always something cool you can do. Especially if you don't have Infinity yet, you know, you haven't been able to afford it. Like I said, a much weaker version of this build can very easily do players 1. Just shown on Maxroll. So I can actually lead Mephisto here into the fire. You can follow me into the fire and die. Of course, you can also zigzag in front of him and then lead him into the fire that way. Then eventually he's gonna die. So the more fire you put on the ground, kind of zigzagging in front of him, and then just lead him into it, and he dies. You could also use Fire Wall though to do the same thing. Definitely can. Notice though our teleport speed is pretty bad. Like you can definitely go higher teleport speed if you want to farm like Mephisto with this, for instance. We're farming him in player 7 right now, so that's kind of cool. You'll notice though that Fire Wall is still very effective even at level 1, just simply because we have room for maxed. You'll notice though we can just kill Mephisto with Blaze. Kind of running directly in front of him and then pathing away from him like that. Ranged monsters or monsters that have ranged abilities, the best way to kill them is to make a whole bunch of fire somewhere near them and then run around them maybe, you know, like interweave your blaze in between them and then just run away from them while they still have you in their line of sight and then they'll follow you and die. And then we found an Inferno Stride, which is it's actually kind of funny because this item has blaze when struck. It's kind of cute. Well, anyway, very cool. I mean, obviously, you know, that wouldn't be a very good blaze because it has no synergies or anything else, but it's kind of cool. Anyway, that's it. That's pretty much all there is to the Blaze Sorceress. I mean, I showed her off in high player count in different scenarios. I showed her off in players 1 cows and how she just absolutely melts them. So you can see, like, with a much weaker version of the build, you can still kill them in players 1 for sure. Blaze is totally viable. It's totally viable. It's still like an overall F tier build though, because let's be honest, Fire, she kind of lacks some versatility anyway, but compared to almost every other Fire build, she just doesn't have as much of a direct damage approach, so she's going to be a bit less efficient. And also, since she doesn't have a Mercenary as well, like she lacks a bit some varied types of damage. But you can see though she can get pretty tanky. She's pretty powerful, and she can be effective in some limited scenarios, and it can be a lot of fun. Just build as much fast run walk as you want. Another thing you can do is put like a Harmony bow and swap and run even faster. So yeah, you can run faster to escape the monsters or to lead them into you. In general, it's really good stuff though, and hope you guys enjoyed this guide. Hope you guys learned something indeed. Got a whole bunch of awesome guides like this, and of course this guide will also be on Maxroll, the written form, where you can check out different build variants and all the details in terms of gear options and things of that nature. And we'll have the timestamps below, of course, in the description, in the first pinned comment, so you can check out every part of this guide. Anyways, I am Dark Humility. I will... you can always catch me at twitch.tv/Dark Humility for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 action. And if you like videos like these, you know, make sure to subscribe so you can see more. We always coming out with awesome builds and whatnot. Got a couple of new ones for this new ladder here. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Dark Humility, over and out. Let's get it. Blaze it up. Burn it down. Make some ground beef. Fire up that grill. See you guys next time.